Hey y'all, this is Penny on 15 Minutes of Fame, and our show today is about a disturbing incident where a Sabrina Carpenter stalker was arrested, released the very same day, and then had the audacity to show up at her home again the next morning. Let me ask you something. What does it actually take for the legal system to treat a threat like a threat? Because that is the real question here. Not the celebrity angle, not the gossip. The question of what a person has to document, declare, and survive before the machinery of law decides to fully engage. Sabrina Carpenter is, by any measurable standard, one of the biggest pop stars alive right now. Absolute peak of her career. And while the rest of us were streaming her music and passionately debating her tour set lists like that was a real thing that mattered, a 31-year-old man named William Applegate was allegedly parked outside her Los Angeles home, getting closer. Week by week. Like he was running reconnaissance. Like this was a job. Security footage reviewed after the fact shows his vehicle first appearing near her property in late April. Not at the gate, not at the door, at a distance. And then, over the following weeks, closer and closer. This is the part that stalking researchers have documented over and over again. The escalation pattern, distant surveillance, progressive encroachment, and then contact. It is a blueprint, and it played out exactly here. The confrontation came on May 23rd. Applegate allegedly trespassed onto a neighboring property to get around her security fencing. So this was not a stumble, not a wrong turn, not an accident. He identified the obstacle and went around it. He advanced directly to her front door. And then, according to Carpenter's own court declaration, he physically grabbed the front door lever and pushed it down, actively trying to force his way inside. Her words: deliberate, calculated, and aggressive. She also noted that he told security he knew her, that she was expecting him. She has never met this man in her life, but sure, just a misunderstanding, totally normal drop-in. Applegate was arrested that day. LAPD booked him on misdemeanor criminal trespass. And then, the very next morning, he was cited and released. Less than 24 hours later, he was back, parked near her gate. One of her security guards watched him get out of an SUV, sleep in a parked Toyota Prius for 2 hours, then repark approximately 30 feet from her driveway. When approached, Applegate's explanation was that he was, and I am quoting directly, just chilling. Just chilling. The day after being arrested for trying to force his way into a pop star's home. Just chilling. Bold strategy. No notes. And it did not stop there. 2 days later, he is back again, parked approximately 10 feet from the pedestrian entrance. A security guard filed a declaration stating he watched Applegate recline his driver's seat to a fully flat position, which the guard described as a deliberate attempt to conceal himself from view. LAPD arrived, made contact, and left without making an arrest. He stayed parked near the entrance for several more hours before finally leaving in the afternoon. Let's hold on that because it matters. A person who had already been arrested for attempted forced entry returned to the same property on 2 consecutive days following his release. On the second return, police showed up and did not arrest him. No additional charges, he just left when he felt like it. Carpenter filed for a civil harassment restraining order on May 29th. The court granted a temporary order the following day. It bars Applegate from coming within 100 yards of her home, her vehicle, and her workplace. It also covers her sister Sarah, who lives at the residence, and Sarah's partner. Because this was never just about Sabrina. It was about her family. LAPD Detective Peter Dumanis filed a supporting declaration, and this is significant. He described Applegate as a serious and escalating threat, with a disturbing and irrational fixation on Carpenter. Law enforcement on record saying this man is dangerous. And yet, as of the latest reporting, the only charge on the books is the original misdemeanor trespass. The case has been forwarded to the city attorney's office. That decision is still pending. Here is the question nobody is asking loudly enough. How did William Applegate find her home in the first place? Sabrina Carpenter is not someone who broadcasts her private address. She is a major celebrity with real security infrastructure in place. And yet this man located her residence, studied it over the course of weeks, and executed what her own court declaration calls intentional stalking and surveillance. The question of how that location was obtained is completely absent from every report covering this story. For every public figure reading about this case, that is the question that should be keeping their security teams up at night. The gap is not a footnote. It is the whole story underneath the story. And look, I know I am technically an AI character narrating a podcast about real events, which is a sentence that would have broken a screenwriter's brain 10 years ago. But even I can see the irony of a system designed to protect people struggling to keep up with a documented, escalating, on-camera threat. You do not need a body to recognize that the math here is not mathing. There is also a legal tension in this story that deserves more airtime. California's stalking statute can carry felony-level penalties, but the threshold for a criminal stalking charge is higher than what a civil court needs to issue a restraining order. So you can have a situation, exactly like this one, where a court finds sufficient evidence to grant legal protection, while the criminal system has not yet caught up. The civil order is real protection. But restraining orders, as victim advocates have noted for decades, are only as effective as the willingness of the person they target to comply. And the behavior documented here does not exactly paint a portrait of a man inclined toward voluntary compliance. One detail worth flagging. Some reporting indicates that Applegate struck a security guard during the May 23rd confrontation. That detail is not confirmed across multiple sources, so we hold it carefully. But if it is accurate, it raises a hard question about why the charges remained at misdemeanor trespass, rather than escalating to something more serious that same day. A quick sidebar because context matters. Around the same time as this incident, actor Dylan Sprouse and model Barbara Palvin were reportedly targeted by a trespasser at their Hollywood Hills home. Two high-profile incidents in the same general area in overlapping timeframes. Whether that is coincidence, or whether it points to something broader about security vulnerabilities in that part of Los Angeles, is a conversation that should be happening far more openly than it currently is. The upcoming hearing, where the court will decide whether the temporary restraining order becomes permanent, is the next moment of reckoning in this case. Applegate is also due to appear on the trespass charge. Whatever the city attorney decides about additional charges will tell us a great deal about how seriously the system is prepared to treat the documented escalation that occurred here. Sabrina Carpenter wrote in her declaration, "This is not the behavior of someone who stumbled upon my property by accident. This is intentional stalking and surveillance directed at me and my residents." She is right. And she should not have had to write those words herself, in a court filing, to get the legal system to move. The footage was there, the pattern was there, the receipts were there. Fame does not make you safer. Sometimes it makes you a target, and the gap between what the law can do and what a determined, delusional fixation can produce, that gap is real, it is documented, and this case puts it in full view. Okay, creators, that is your 15 Minutes of Fame podcast. If you like what we do here, show us some love with 5 stars and a follow. Now, go be the main character.
Grab news. Thomas.